Hi there, welcome back to the Alban allotment. So in today's video we're going to look back at February and do a review of February. So obviously February was a bit of a roller coaster month for everybody because we had the storms, those three storms really close together. Eunice, Dudley and Franklin, I think was the names of the storms. So obviously they were really close together. Luckily we got off quite lightly. We didn't really have that much damage from all three of them really. The first one blew out some of the windows in the greenhouse but didn't smash, and then the second one blew out some more glass which did smash but only a couple of panes. So not really a big deal really for us. We're quite lucky there. What we weren't so lucky with was the flooding. So the flooding did go a few times on plot 79. It went down almost completely, but then the next day came back because we had quite a lot of rain at the start of February again. So yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster month for us, but we're happy to say now that since about midway through February, the flooding has completely gone on plot 79 and has been relatively dry for quite some time now, which is really nice. The water is still quite high in terms of groundwater. It's not above the surface, but if you dig down you can find it quite easily. But it's a few inches under the ground now. So yeah, hopefully we are now free of any major floods, at least for the rest of this season. And hopefully the water company don't turn off their pumps again and cause any devastation. Anyway, so that is the flooding and the storms and stuff. We're very lucky really that we haven't had more damage than we have, especially because we seem to be quite bad with luck at the moment. But yeah, we got off quite lightly there. One other really cool thing to talk about this month is that one of our videos on the channel passed the 1,000 view mark as well in February, which is really awesome. It was the video to do with getting the plot 12 ready for the new shed, like laying the base, moving the old greenhouse, that kind of thing. It seems to have been one of our most popular videos. It still gets quite a lot of views now, and yeah, like I say, it passed the 1,000 view mark, which is amazing. And there's been a couple of other videos as well that have started to do pretty well. So quite positive news for the channel itself as well, which is a good time for me to thank everybody that's subscribed. I really love it. It's really crazy actually that people are subscribing to our content. I never thought it would actually even be anywhere near as popular as it is, and I also never thought that I would stick with it and get quite as many videos out as I have done as well. I actually started a podcast a few years ago and I only did 2 episodes of the podcast, so I think we're up to episode 17 I think or 18 on the videos now. So pretty cool that we're managing to keep that going. But yeah, a huge thank you to everyone that's subscribed and everyone that views our videos. It means the absolute world to me, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you very much. So let's talk a bit about the indoor growing in February. So we ended up doing our first sowing of tomatoes in February, as well as a few other bits and bobs. And most of it's doing okay. The tomatoes came up really quickly. But unfortunately some of the chilies are looking quite sad. The aubergines are doing really well. They are really quite happy. But the chilies, they seem to have gone a bit anemic. They're going a little bit yellow. So what I've done is in the same pots, I've just emptied out the compost that they were in and just used fresh compost, just in case there was something wrong with the compost that they didn't like. There's a really high chance that I'm still over and underwatering. I'm not very good at it this year. I don't know what the problem is, because last year it wasn't an issue at all and it was completely fine and all the chilies came out really well. But this year, for some reason, I just can't seem to get it right. But it's still not too late. I think we'll probably do another sowing of chilies this month. The aubergines are doing fine, and I did actually sow some more chilies as well in February, but they again have stunted and haven't really done very much. The microgreens as well just completely stopped. They just haven't got any bigger. I'm wondering if I just put too many in. It's the first time properly trying to do it indoors, but that was at the start of January that I did that, and they are still really tiny, so I would expect them to be further along than they are by now. They're like the little plants that are there, they seem quite healthy, they're just not growing any bigger, and there's probably just too many of them. So lesson learned, maybe next time we do it, we try it with about half the amount that we tried to do it with this time, and we'll see how we get on. So I also potted up the Fresnos as well. They are doing okay, again looking a little bit anemic. Some of them are still quite green, but there's a few that are lagging behind. And the Sutton's chilies, they are basically worthless as well. I potted them out just to give them a chance, but until we needed the space, but most of those just haven't done anything. One of them is quite tall and thin and leggy looking, even though they're under lights. And it has a flower bud on it now, but you know, it's not going to do anything, I don't think. So, well, they're not going to be very good plants anyway. So when we need the space, I think they're just going to go, and we'll just replace them with the Thompson and Morgan ones that we used, as well as the Wilco's ones as well that we've sown. It's a bit of a shame, but they never did any good right from the start. They've just been a bit weird, those seeds. The other ones at least germinated okay. Those ones have been very slow to get going. Oh yeah, and the other thing to talk about as well is that we've been chitting our potatoes at home, and they're doing really well. They can probably go down to the shed now, at least in plot 12, and actually they could probably go in bags now, because we're going to grow them mostly in bags of compost again, like we did last year, which was really helpful for us last year, because when the flooding was happening we could move them about, but it turned out they were really easy to harvest that way. So we're probably going to do it like that going forward, at least some of them anyway. We do have a lot of space, so we can maybe put some in the ground, but for now we're just going to put some in compost bags, and just put them in the bottom and then fill them up with compost, and then, you know, do the usual rolling it up and filling more compost in as the plants get bigger. The hardest part of that is keeping them watered, and last year we weren't completely on top of it, which is why I think our potatoes weren't necessarily the best harvest that we had, but we'll see how we get on this year. We do have a lot as well, because we had a pick your own section in our garden centre where we picked quite a few, so we probably have too many, so we may end up needing to give some away or put some in the ground anyway, because it will be an awful lot of compost to do them all in bags. But yeah, we'll see how we get on with that. March is usually the time that we do our potatoes, so we should get on that soon, I think. In terms of plot 12, it's still been a lot of just getting stuff ready for the season. In terms of the shed, we haven't made much progress. The plastic is still on the roof because we haven't felted it yet. We haven't painted it. We haven't got the windows in, although we have now started doing the frames for those. What we have got done, or at least phase 1 of done, is the workbench at the back of the shed, the double depth one made out of scaffolding boards. That's now done, and so is the side one. So we've got the legs on that and everything, and that is now usable at least. It's only phase 1 because we still need to put a few extra braces in, somehow add some shelves or shelving units underneath it, and varnish it and that kind of thing. But that is a job that we'll do later in the season when we have a bit less going on, hopefully. And then other than that, we have started laying the foundations, but that was right at the end of February. That's for the greenhouse that we want to move from plot 79 onto plot 12, and so we're going to swap the two greenhouses there. The broad beans have finally started showing, that we sowed quite a long time ago. I think we sowed those in January, so they're finally showing now on plot 12, which is really exciting. It's the first sign of spring, other than the daffodils and stuff that have come up, but in terms of produce, it's a really nice thing to see. And the radishes that we sowed in January, they didn't do a lot. They did come up, but they've mostly been eaten by slugs, because we didn't put any slug pellets down, which is a bit of an error. But we can just try again. I mean, they're just radishes. They're going to grow really quickly as the weather starts to warm up. The spinach that we sowed in February, that hasn't really come up yet. I think there is just signs of it starting to show, but we haven't seen much from that yet. And the plan was to put beetroot next to that, but we haven't done that yet either. I think that might actually just be in March's seed plan anyway. So that's kind of it. Oh no, we've also covered our alliums as well. So the garlic that we put in, which we have quite a lot of, we've completely covered that now. I read that the time to cover for allium leaf miner is between March and May, but because it's been so mild, I got a bit nervous that they might start laying their eggs in the soil a bit earlier than we're planning. So I've covered it now anyway. The garlic's completely covered in hoops, which is nice, and then EnviroMesh on top of that. And the onion sets in the opposite bed, they are covered with EnviroMesh, but just flat at the moment. And they're just starting to germinate and just starting to poke through now. We still need to sow some leeks, I think, next to that, but that might not be in the plan for this month. I do want to get some good leek harvest this year though, so I think we're going to try a few different ways and a few different times this year to try and get leeks, but that is a different topic, I think. We've just been defining the paths a little bit more, but the main focus at the moment is trying to get that greenhouse moved, which I'm happy to say we are almost about ready to do, but that is again more of a March conversation than a February conversation. Oh yeah, and we've taken out last year's celery as well. That is completely out, and we've given the kale a really good haircut and just lopped the tops off because they were looking a bit tatty from where the pigeons had managed to eat them. So I took off all the tatty looking leaves, lopped the tops off and left those really nice side shoots, which Sergio has actually just harvested some of, and making some minestrone with some of our borlotti beans that we dried from last year, which is cool. So they're looking pretty good. I really prefer the little side shoot leaves than the main kale leaves. I'm not a huge fan of kale, but I like the softer side shoot leaves, so happy about that. And then also behind those, we've taken out the last of the parsnips as well, because they just started to sprout again in February with the nice warm weather that we've had. But that means we've been able to see where they actually are, because the ones that we didn't get out in time for the foliage dying back showed where they are, and we were able to get those out. So we've harvested those and frozen those now as well. That's, I think, about it on plot 12. There's been some tidying and stuff at the back and that kind of thing, but not a lot of progress elsewhere. Most of the focus has been on getting that greenhouse ready to move, which has been a big job. And then in terms of plot 79, so as I say, the flooding has come up and gone down quite a few times on that plot, but we've been dry for a few weeks now, which is quite nice. There's a lot of tidying to do in terms of like getting off all the green algae and stuff, but I've been taking the glass out of the greenhouse, which to make it ready to move, and there hasn't been a lot of actual tidying. Again, we don't want to spend too much tidying if we don't know for sure that the flooding has definitely gone until the season properly starts. So there's no point spending loads of time tidying there at the moment. But what we have been doing is putting some stuff into the greenhouse from the house. So the leeks have gone down there, the oregano and the thyme and stuff has all gone down there to free up a bit of room here for the tomatoes and stuff. And then also we've been pre-sprouting some broad beans to just put straight into the ground as well, with some fleece over it, and they have just started to show their heads as well, which is nice. So we've got broad beans on plot 12 and plot 79. So the ones on 79 are in the no-dig beds by the greenhouse, and then they've had a fresh layer of mulch put over them, or some of them have anyway, and they are just starting to show, so that's quite exciting as well. So as I said before, the main plan for plot 79 is to do like things like beans and peas and things that take up a lot of room, like squash and pumpkins and that kind of thing, to try and use the space quickly without having to do too much work on it this year. And these are the sort of things that will hopefully, well, the pumpkins will provide ground cover, so hopefully it will help control the weeds, and the beans will hopefully, well, it will just use the space firstly, but it will also not require much maintenance, especially if we use dwarf beans. You won't have to do many structures or anything, and hopefully obviously it will help improve the soil a bit as well. So we've also been pre-sprouting some peas, and I have put those into modules because I didn't know where to put them into the ground yet, but they got a little bit leggy, but they're actually really good for pea shoots. So they are from saved seed, they're from the Blauwschokker peas that we saved from last season, and I didn't really like the taste of those too much, but they are really good for pea shoots. The taste of the pea shoots themselves is really strong, and a really strong pea flavour, and I really like it. So that's probably what we're going to do with those peas from now on. I just need to find a good place to put them where hopefully it won't flood again. We've got loads of space on 79, I'm just not sure of the exact right place to put them yet, but that is something that's upcoming hopefully this month. But yeah, so other than that, there hasn't been a lot of change on plot 79. The other thing to talk about, I think, is the wildflower patch. It is really starting to look good. So we do have a lot of grass in there, but the daffodils have come up. We've put a couple of echinops in there as well, the globe thistles, which hopefully will survive. And there's just loads of little teeny tiny things germinating in the soil, half of which I'm sure are just normal weeds. But I think some of them will be things like poppies and calendula and anything else that we sprinkled that I can't remember. We've also been sprinkling quite a lot of yellow rattle that's been left in the fridge. Each week we just sprinkle a little bit more, and we're trying to keep it watered, and that will hopefully be parasitic on the grass and help control the grass a bit. So really excited for the wildflower patch this year. We don't know exactly what it's going to do, but I have a really good feeling that it's going to be quite nice, because this time it didn't flood over that part. That part stayed completely flood free this year, so fingers crossed. That's really good. Oh, the other thing to talk about as well is the pond. So we've been saving some frog spawn that we keep finding in the paths. So where the flooding kept going up and going back down again, the paths around the pond were, well, actually around the site, around the plot were quite damp and grassy. and the frogs really liked it, so they kept laying frog spawn in the path, so I kept scooping it up and putting it into the pond. And as the water's gone down, there's been even more frog spawn show up in the pond, which is really exciting. It's the first year that we've had frog spawn naturally show in the pond, but we needed to add some habitat around the pond itself, because they're obviously enjoying the grasslands around it, but there's not much in the actual pond or around the pond for the frogs to hide away in when they are doing whatever they do as frogs. Yeah, so we've started to improve that by using old broken pots upturned so that there's a little bit of habitat for them, and then eventually I think we'll end up putting some more plants in the pond, and we will also hopefully put some twigs and some logs and stuff around the pond as well. So that is plot 79, and that is the review of February. It's not quite as in depth, or there's not quite as much going on as there was in January, but I think March is going to be a bit different, especially as we're just about to move the greenhouse and stuff, which hopefully you'll get to see on the next plot tours. I really hope we've moved it by the time we do the next plot tour or plot 12, because it's really going to change how that plot feels. But anyway, that is it for today's video. Thanks again for subscribing. It really means an awful lot, and thank you for viewing our videos, and thank you for all the comments that we get and all the likes that we get and all the suggestions and feedback and words of encouragement and all the things that happen. Thank you so much for everything, and it really does mean the world of me. To me. So from me, Sergio and Poppy, take the very best of care, and hopefully we'll get to see you again in the next video, and then hopefully there'll be loads more videos after that that we'll see you in as well. Thank you. Bye.